Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news at 6 on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. India and Japan signed 15 agreements to enhance bilateral cooperation. Both countries pitch for zero tolerance towards terrorism, agree to strengthen fight against Al-Qaeda, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Japanese Premier Shinzo Abe lay foundation for high-speed bullet train project. The train between Ahmedabad and Mumbai will cover over 500 kilometers in around 2 hours. Nation celebrates Hindi Divas across the country. President Ram Nath Kovind presents Basha awards, appeals to Indians to adopt Hindi with greater zeal. And at least 25 children killed in a fire at a boarding school in Malaysia. Short circuit is said to have caused the accident in the unauthorized religious school. India and Japan on Thursday signed 15 agreements to boost bilateral ties and take strategic understanding to new heights. New understanding was also reached between the two countries to counter unilateral activities in the Indo-Pacific region. Wary of the renewed ties between the two countries, China is feeling the heat and was critical of Abe's visit. Japan's Prime Minister said it was a historic day in India-Japan relations. Showing themselves as major regional powers, both India and Japan cautioned North Korea to refrain from nuclear tests and proliferation.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reviewed bilateral relations at a summit meeting on Thursday. They also witnessed the signing of 15 agreements that are expected to impart a new direction to India's development strategy. The agreements included a specific Act East forum to increase infrastructure outreach inside northeastern areas. Other agreements concern development and investment promotion in various areas related to sports.
आज भारत कई स्तरों पर आमूलचूल परिवर्तन की राह पर चल रहा है। ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस हो या स्किल इंडिया, टैक्सेशन रिफॉर्म या मेक इन इंडिया, भारत पूरी तरह ट्रांसफॉर्म हो रहा है। जापान के बिजनेसेस के लिए ये बहुत बड़ा मौका है और मुझे प्रसन्नता है कि जापान की कई कंपनियां हमारे राष्ट्रीय फ्लैगशिप कार्यक्रमों से गहन तौर पर जुड़ी है।
Over the last 1 year, Japanese investment in India has grown 80%, touching $4.7 billion. Both the countries also chalked out a roadmap to ensure a continuous flow of investments in government as well as private sectors. Both leaders also spoke against cross-border terrorism and bullying tactics of China in the South China Sea. They also pointed out that the joint Malabar exercises were a joint front against aggressive Chinese activity.
日印は自由で開かれたインド太平洋戦略とアクトイースト政策をさらに融合させます。今般、モディ首相との間で日印が協力し、地域の連携性を高める協力プロジェクトをアジア、中東やアフリカで広く進めていくことで一致しました。
Both the countries also agreed to explore cooperation between Army, Ground Defence Force, as well as between the Air Force and Japan's Air Defence Force. Modi and Abe later took part in business meeting aimed at letting the political understanding percolate down to trade as well. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
On day 2 of his visit to Gujarat, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe joined Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate the Mumbai Ahmedabad high-speed rail project. The government has set an ambitious deadline of starting the bullet train on August 15, 2022. Here are the highlights of the day.
मुंबई टर्मिनल से अहमदाबाद के 8 घंटे के सफर को मात्र 2 घंटे में तय करेगी ये हाई स्पीड रेल।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe on Thursday laid the foundation stone for the country's first ever bullet train project at Sabarmati station in Ahmedabad. Speaking at the event, PM Modi described the moment as historic and said, "The bullet train is the biggest gift from Japan to India." Calling the bullet train a symbol of new India, the PM said a high-speed rail corridor will give a new momentum to the development of India.
जापान और भारत के रिश्तों के लिए एक ऐतिहासिक और उतना ही भावात्मक अवसर भी है। मुंबई अहमदाबाद के बीच भारत का पहला हाई स्पीड रेल प्रोजेक्ट दोनों देशों के बीच मजबूत होते संबंधों का भी एक उम्दा उदाहरण है, एक प्रतीक है।
Also speaking at the event, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe called Narendra Modi a good friend and said he was looking forward to taking a ride on the bullet train when the project completes to explore more of India.
昨日、私が空港に着いて、そして街頭をずっと車でモディ首相と共に走った際、地域の皆様から受けた大変な歓迎、私は忘れることはないでしょう。
Both leaders also attended a ceremony for the High-Speed Railway Training Institute being set up in Vadodara, which will also have a staff training centre. Both Prime Ministers visited Dandu Kutir, a museum dedicated to Mahatma Gandhi in Gandhinagar. Railway Minister Piyush Goyal, Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani and his Maharashtra counterpart Devendra Fadnavis were also present on the occasion.
साउथ अफ्रीका में महात्मा जी को भेदभाव के कारण एक ट्रेन से निकाला गया था। वह ट्रेन लोगों के बीच बंटवारे का प्रतीक थी, किंतु आज एक दूसरी ट्रेन दो मित्र देशों के बीच जोड़ रही है मित्रता। यह बुलेट ट्रेन जापान और भारत के लोगों के बीच भाईचारे का प्रतीक बन रही है।
The 1.10 lakh crore rupee train project between Ahmedabad and Mumbai is expected to be completed by 2022. The train will cover the distance of over 500 km in around 2 hours. Initially, the train would have 10 coaches with the total sitting capacity of 750 passengers. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, wholesale prices in August rose at the fastest pace in 4 months as vegetables, onions and fuel became costlier. The wholesale price index based inflation rose to 3.24% in August this year as against 1.09% a year ago. It stood at 1.88% in July. Fuel prices recorded the maximum rise. Petrol prices in August rose by 24.55%, while diesel prices rose by 20.30%. Food articles inflation was up 5.75%, vegetables at 44.91% and onions at 88.46%. Abu Ismail, the mastermind of the attack on Amarnath pilgrims in July, was killed in an encounter in Jammu and Kashmir's Naugam area today. Ismail was shot dead along with another LET operative. The Lashkar terrorist was a Pakistani national and one of the most wanted men in Kashmir. 8 Amarnath pilgrims were killed and 19 injured after terrorists targeted a bus in Anantnag district in July. Security agencies had launched a manhunt to nab Ismail soon after the attack on July 10th. Well, Niti Aayog has drawn up an action plan for a malnourishment-free India. Although India has witnessed significant progress in the battle against child malnutrition over the past decade, the progress has been quite uneven and child malnutrition rates still remain high in many parts of the country. Here's a report.
1 in 3 children in India are stunted, a statistic that the Niti Aayog hopes to remedy with a national strategy to fight maternal and child malnutrition and anemia. With nutrition as the center point of its strategy, the proposed project will focus on 100 districts, 29 of which are in UP. The Niti Aayog's vision of Kuposhan Mukt Bharat aims to reduce all forms of malnutrition by 2030 by emphasizing improvements in health, food, drinking water, sanitation, income and livelihood.
कन्वर्जेंट एक्शन जिसमें सभी डिपार्टमेंट्स को एक साथ लाके गांव लेवल पे कैसे किस प्लेटफॉर्म को यूज़ करके हमें उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करना है, पहला क्रियान्वित करना है। दूसरा कि हर राज्य की अलग अलग गुण हैं और अलग अलग उनकी विशेषताएं हैं। उन विशेषताओं के आधार पे स्थानीय सोच के आधार पे हमें अपनी रणनीति बनानी पड़ेगी। तो थोड़ा सा हम दूसरे वो कहते हैं। तीसरा क्या है कि जब तक हम किसी चीज़ को मापेंगे नहीं, जब तक उसकी हम मॉनिटरिंग नहीं करेंगे, उसका अनुश्रवण नहीं करेंगे, तब तक वो काम होगा नहीं। अभी हमारे पास क्या है, हर 10 साल में एक बार हम मेजर करते हैं कि न्यूट्रिशन का स्टेटस क्या रहा। इस 10 साल के मेजरमेंट में हम किसी भी मैनेजर को अकाउंटेबल जवाबदेह नहीं बना सकते हैं रिजल्ट के प्रति।
Currently, 50% pregnant women and 60% children in the country are anemic. The fallout is a country that suffers an income loss of 9 to 10% due to a workforce that's been stunted in childhood. Undernutrition is more prevalent in the rural areas, mainly due to a low socioeconomic status. Across the country, 1 in 5 women are undernourished. Add to this early pregnancies, which raises the risk of low birth weight babies. The worst affected in this respect are Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand and Bihar.
उनका जो होने वाला बच्चा है वो भी बहुत ही छोटा होगा और उसका भी पोषण ठीक से नहीं होगा, क्योंकि अगर पेल्विस का साइज़ छोटा होता है तो प्लासेंटा का साइज़ भी छोटा होता है और बच्चे को माँ से जो ब्लड मिलता है प्लासेंटा से गर्भावस्था में वो उसमें कमी होगी।
The 2017 Global Hunger Index report ranks India 97th among 118 countries with a serious hunger situation. Among South Asian nations, India ranks 3rd behind Afghanistan and Pakistan and is worse off than even nations like North Korea or Sudan. India is home to 25% hungry people in the world, 72% are infants, and 52% married women have anemia. The link between sanitation and undernutrition is even stronger. Districts with less access to toilets have higher rates of child undernourishment, which is why socio-economic welfare is hoped to be an antidote. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
At least 22 people drowned and many others are missing after an overloaded boat capsized in the Yamuna in Uttar Pradesh's Bagpat. District Magistrate Bhavani Singh Khagrot confirmed the casualties. Protesting against the unsafe ferry in the Yamuna, local residents pelted stones on government and private vehicles. The protest disrupted road transport on Delhi-Yamunotri highway for several hours. Expressing grief over the incident, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath announced financial assistance of 2 lakh rupees each to the next of kin. Well, President Ram Nath Kovind also extended condolences to bereaved families and wished quick recovery to those rescued. Well, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu today condoled the passing away of constitutional law expert PPrao. In a message, the Vice President said, "My personal association with PPrao goes back to the time to my early years in public life, as he also hailed from the same district, Nellore, in the state of Andhra Pradesh. He was considered as one of the foremost constitutional law experts in the country and had completed 50 years of his legal practice in July this year. I convey my deepest condolences to the bereaved members of the family and join the nation in praying for eternal peace for the departed soul." PPrao was a noted constitutional law expert and senior counsel. He was a former president of the Supreme Court Bar Association and was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 2006. He was also a regular commentator on legal affairs. He died on Wednesday following a cardiac arrest. Well, Hindi Divas was celebrated across the country today. President Ram Nath Kovind presented the Basha awards on the occasion. He appealed to the Indians to adopt Hindi with greater zeal. The President further urged that continuous efforts are necessary in this direction so that more employment opportunities can be made available to the youth through Hindi language. Home Minister Rajnath Singh also stressed on the need for greater use of Hindi language in official work.
मजहब जो है वो समाज को कभी वैसे सिखाता नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी वो बांट सकता है। लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि भाषाएं जो है वो हमेशा जोड़ती हैं, हमेशा जोड़ती हैं। आप एक दूसरे की भाषा का आदान प्रदान करेंगे, उनके शब्दों का उच्चारण करेंगे, तो मुझे लगता है कि जितनी आपकी समीपता आएगी वो और किसी कारण से नहीं आ सकती।
Well, here's a roundup of some other news from across the country and nationwide. The ban order on diesel vehicles would remain the same as the National Green Tribunal refused the centre's plea that sought a modification in it. The tribunal had earlier held that all diesel vehicles which are more than 10 years old will not be permitted to ply in Delhi NCR. But pollution levels in the region that spurred a rise in health issues made the NGT impose the ban order. One coach of the Jammu Tawi New Delhi Rajdhani Express derailed today at the New Delhi railway station. As per officials, nobody was injured. The incident took place around 6 a.m. when the train was entering the platform. Today was the third day of protests at Jantar Mantar by 50,000 Shiksha Mitras from UP. They are demanding that the central government should bring the education figures equivalent to an auxiliary teacher by bringing an amendment to the Right to Education Act. They have threatened to go on an indefinite dharna until the central government takes a decision on it. It's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
When it comes to research output, Indian institutions are doing very well. They are in the top 50, at least the older IITs. Technologies that one requires to fabricate a chip inside a mobile phone is exactly same as the technologies that you will require to fabricate the sensor for cardiac diagnosis or the sensors for explosive detection. Around that time, around 2005, we started asking the question, can we also do something for the Indian society, something which can make an impact in the society.
Watch Eureka with Professor V. Ram Gopal Rao, Director at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, let's now get you the latest on the Rohingya crisis, where the central government on Thursday told the Supreme Court that the refugees from Myanmar are a serious threat to national security and must be deported in the larger interest of the nation. This even as New Delhi began sending relief materials to Bangladesh for lakhs of Rohingya Muslims fleeing Myanmar. Here's more.
Despite refusing to open doors for Rohingya Muslims, India on Thursday sent 53 tons of relief material to Bangladesh for the refugees. The first consignment of India's assistance comes days after Dhaka briefed New Delhi about the problems faced by it due to the influx of these refugees. As Myanmar's Rohingyas struggle to find a new home, they have also been accused of linkages to global terror groups. This comes days after the Al-Qaeda urged Muslims to rally for their cause. Even as the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army tried to defend the minority group and has distanced itself from such allegations, Myanmar's government led by Aung San Suu Kyi has labelled the Rohingyas as extremist terrorists who want to impose Islamic rule over a portion of Rakhine state. Meanwhile, life in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar relief camps is deteriorating by the day. The refugee camps are bursting at the seams, with aid groups and authorities scrambling to erect new shelters, provide food and medical support to an estimated 370,000 Rohingyas.
Ashto din bade yo tai hochi di kut tuneli din ashto din bade tochte e kohada made eda patpa ni sara gura honjere benne hosorot edon tiwari amatundu mortu made edon tiwari eda ada mata hon murabutur ba than rani ne hari ei na duguri hosto re chi din rogo boli da ase yan ma ja baitha chinta kore dabai ote to kono byabostha nai ara to phone fialom mai da ja pani tani le da ase sola firale ara to beshi kosto mai pore gi ar kono electric byabostha nai.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on authorities in Myanmar to end the violence against the Rohingya Muslims.
They expressed concern about reports of excessive violence during the security operations and called for immediate steps to end the violence in Rakhine, de-escalate the situation, re-establish law and order, ensure the protection of civilians, restore normal socio-economic conditions, and resolve the refugee.
The UN also said an estimated 1 lakh refugees may still be waiting to cross over into Bangladesh, while more than 100 of them died while making the perilous boat crossing over to Bangladesh. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
22 students were killed in Kuala Lumpur after a massive fire broke out in an Islamic boarding school today. The students, along with 2 wardens, were trapped in their dormitory when the fire broke out early in the morning. While authorities have launched an investigation to ascertain the cause of the fire, questions are being raised once again on the illegal functioning of these Islamic schools in Malaysia.
In one of Malaysia's worst fire tragedies in 2 decades, 24 people, including 22 boys aged between 13 and 17 years, were charged to death in a school in Kuala Lumpur. The fire broke out in one of the dormitories of the Darul Quran Ittifaqiyah Islamic boarding school early on Thursday morning. The students were reportedly trapped inside the dormitory as they were unable to leave through the only door which caught fire. Many of the bodies of the victims were found piled on top of one another, indicating a stampede. While 2 wardens also perished in the fire, 6 students are reported to be in a critical condition. 11 people were rescued.
Masa dalam pukul 5 macam tu, akak dengar dia orang menjerit, minta tolong. Lepas tu akak buka tingkap, ingatkan siapa, akak pun keluar, rupanya dia dah terbakar. Masa kecil lagi. Masa kecil, masa dia orang minta tolong dengan tangan kat tingkap apa semua, akak pun tak boleh buat apa.
Tingkap. Kita orang tarik grill, buka tingkap, ikut pipe. Grill tu sentap lah. Lepas tu tak fikir apa dah.
While the cause of the fire is not confirmed yet, officials suspect the blaze was caused by an electrical short circuit or a mosquito-repelling device. Officials said the religious school was operating without a license or a fire safety permit.
Jabatan Bomba dan Selamat juga telah menyediakan latihan khusus agar anak tahfiz ini dan sekolah-sekolah agama rakyat mewujudkan pasukan bomba sukarelawan masing-masing.
The latest incident has once again raised serious questions on the religious schools in Malaysia, also known as tahfiz. Over 200 fire incidents have been recorded in the religious Islamic schools in Malaysia since 2015, which are often unregistered and run illegally. Tahfiz teach Quran to students between the ages of 5 and 18 and are not sanctioned by the government. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, US President Donald Trump and Democratic leaders agreed to work together on a legislation to protect dreamers, the illegal migrants who were brought illegally to the US as children. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and House of Representatives Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi said that they agreed to enshrine protections of deferred action for childhood arrivals into law. According to reports, Trump agreed to pair the DREAM Act, which provides a path to permanent residency, with some form of border security that excludes Trump's promised border wall. White House spokeswoman Sarah Sanders, however, disputed that a deal was reached to leave it out of any legislation focused on the Dreamers. Well, 2 days after the United Nations imposed fresh sanctions against North Korea over its nuclear tests, Pyongyang has reacted with more threats to the United States and Japan. The Korea-Asia-Pacific Peace Committee, which oversees North Korea's relations with the outside world, has threatened to sink Japan. It also described the UN Security Council as a tool of evil paid by Washington.
After the latest round of UN sanctions, North Korea stepped up its threatening rhetoric against the United States and its allies. On Thursday, a North Korean state agency threatened to use nuclear weapons to sink Japan for supporting the UN Security Council's sanctions over its latest nuclear test.
일본 열도의 4개 섬을 주체의 핵탄으로 바닷속에 쳐넣어야 한다. 일본은 더 이상 우리 가까이에 둘 존재가 아니다.
Pyongyang also reiterated its threat to the United States.
미국 땅을 초토화하자. 암흑 세계로 만들자. 지금까지 차근차근 준비한 보복 수단을 총동원하여 우리의 한을 풀자고 한 사람같이 요구에 나서고 있다.
Japan condemned the statement by North Korea, calling it extremely provocative and unacceptable.
極めて挑発的な内容で言語道断であって地域の緊張を著しく高めるものであって断じて容認をすることはできません。
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who's on a visit to India, called for strict enforcement of the UN resolution against North Korea. He said the world must force a change in Pyongyang's policies.
北朝鮮問題に対し、日銀は断固たる対応を取ります。今般採択された安保理決議を国際社会全体でしっかりと履行し、北朝鮮に政策を変えさせなければならない。
The United States said it is now considering economic sanctions against countries trading with North Korea.
We can stop trade with any country that does business with North Korea. We're going to be careful in using these tools, but the President is committed. We will use economic sanctions to bring North Korea to the table.
On Monday, the UN Security Council had voted unanimously on a US-drafted resolution and imposed a new round of sanctions against North Korea for conducting its sixth and perhaps the most powerful nuclear test.
Well, let's now shift focus and bring you up to speed with some news from the world of sports in SportsBeat. Ace shuttler PV Sindhu and Sameer Verma advanced to the quarterfinals of the Korea Super Series Badminton in Seoul with straight game wins. But Parupalli Kashyap bowed out. Olympic silver medalist Sindhu defeated Thailand's Nichaon Jindapol 22-20, 21-17 and will face Japan's Minatsu Mitani. Sameer Verma defeated Hong Kong's Wong Wing Ki Vincent 21-19, 21-13 in 41 minutes and will face Son Van Ho in the quarterfinals. India's Nikhil Kanetkar entered the quarterfinals of the World Senior Badminton Championship in Kochi. Kanetkar defeated Switzerland's Oliver Collin 21-17, 21-18. He will now face Hendrik Westermeier of Germany in the next round. In another match, Abhin Sham Gupta beat Hungary's Kristofsson Horvath 21-18, 21-19 to enter the quarterfinals of the plus 35 men's category. The World 11 team defeated Pakistan in the second T20 international of the three-match series at Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore on Wednesday. Pakistan scored 174 runs for the loss of 6 wickets, while World 11 opened their innings as Tamim Iqbal and Hashim Amla took the total to 44 in 5 overs. Hashim Amla's unbeaten 72 and Thisara Pereira's 47 runs helped the visitors win the match and level the series 1-1. The third and the final match will be played at the same venue on Friday. Paris reclaimed the 2024 Olympic Games after a 100-year wait after the International Olympic Committee announced that it would host the tournament. The IOC also allocated the 2028 Games to Los Angeles. The votes for both cities were unanimous. Paris and Los Angeles were the only candidates for the 2024 Games after Hamburg, Rome and Budapest withdrew from the race. Well, that's it on this newscast, but do stay tuned for the big picture on the other side of the short break.